I cast on 15 stitches on both of my needles. I take out one needle, I take my contrast color and I hold it like this, and the tail in front, and then the main color goes like this over the middle finger and then like this. So this is how my yarn looks like. Now I hold the tails together and I start knit the first stitch, that's the edge stitch, and then usually I do I have a brioche purl column here, so now we have to brioche purl this stitch. We go with the needle behind both yarns like this, and then purl with the contrast color, and when we take it out we have the brioche purl and the yarn over, and then the next stitch we have to knit it. We go in between the yarns and then knit and go out like this. So when you take the stitch from the needle, you have the stitch and the yarn over. I hold my yarns like this. One is behind the needle and one is in front of the needle. It's easier not to get confused. So again, we have to brioche purl. We go with the needle behind both yarns and then we purl with the contrast color, and when we take out the needle we go under the main color yarn, so we have the brioche purl stitch and the yarn over, and again we have to knit. We go with the needle in between the yarns, knit, and when we take out the needle we go under the contrast color yarn, so we have the brioche knit stitch and the yarn over. So let's see it like this in action. Brioche purl and then brioche knit, and again brioche purl and brioche knit. I just hold this yarn over so it won't slip, and again we have to brioche purl, and then we have to brioche knit, and then brioche purl and brioche knit, and in the end brioche purl, and then we have both of the yarns in front and we just slip the edge stitch, and we did these 2 rows. Usually we have 2 rows in brioche. We did it in 1 row, 1 pass for both colors. Now we turn the work, and so this is like the other side of the work, and here our knit stitches, brioche knit stitches, will be in contrast color. So now in the beginning you don't see it, but after a few rows you will see it and it will be easier. But right now you just have to know that this is the brioche knit color and this is the brioche purl color. The brioche purl color always goes like this on the index finger, and then the brioche knit color from this row goes on the middle finger. So let's start this row. We brioche knit again the edge stitch with the main color, even if it's on the purl side. So we just brioche knit it. That's the exception for the edge stitch, and after that we do we have to start with a brioche knit stitch. We have to brioche knit this both stitches, the stitch and the yarn over. Well, that's one stitch in brioche, so we brioche knit it, and like I told you, we go, when we get out, we don't do it like this, we go under the main color yarn and we have a stitch and the yarn over. After that we have to brioche purl, so we go again behind both yarns and brioche purl. So it's the same thing we did in the previous row, it's just the colors, we just switched the colors of yarns, and now we are brioche knitting with this pink yarn and brioche purling with this blue yarn. So again, brioche knit and brioche purl, brioche knit, and brioche purl, and you go under the yarn, always under the yarn, so you have the yarn over. So brioche knit and go under the yarn, brioche purl, we purl, and then when you get out, we have to go with the needle under the yarn to pick up the second color yarn, so have the stitch and the yarn over, and then brioche knit and this time we leave the yarns like this. The main color goes in front of the needle of the stitch that we slip, and the contrast color goes in the back, and we just slip the stitch. That's the first way you can do one pass brioche. You can use this method when you have to just brioche knit and brioche purl. So if you have increases or decreases, you can't use it because you will always have the stitch and the yarn over, and then when you have to do increases and decreases, you have to work each color at a time, and it will look like you'll have two yarn overs somewhere. I just tried it, I won't show you, I tried it and it's not good. So if you just do a simple brioche rib, no increases or decreases, you can use this method. The second method is actually only half one pass brioche, because the first two rows we will knit as usual, one color at a time, and you can use this method when you have to increase or decrease, because that's what you have to do, one color at a time. So knit the edge stitch, slip on yarn over, brioche knit, and repeat, slip on yarn over, brioche knit. That's the usual way that I do my first row in brioche. For the brioche rib, just repeat, slip on yarn over, brioche knit, and in the end slip on yarn over and slip one purlwise with yarn in front, and that's the last edge stitch. And now we have to slide the stitches to the other end. So now I will knit with the second color, slip the stitch, the edge stitch, and then brioche purl, slip on yarn over, brioche purl, slip on yarn over. So these are like the setup rows, and then after you start the pattern, you'll have to do the increases and decreases in this the previous row that we did with the main color, and then with this contrast color you do the second row, and then when you turn the work you can do one pass brioche, and that's the same thing that we did in the first method. So the same way I put the yarn that I have to purl with on my index finger, and then the yarn that I have to knit with on my middle finger. So like this, and then knit the first edge stitch. A trick here that I do, because if you do like I showed you the first time, you do the knit stitch like this, you have the yarn over. After that, this edge stitch in the next rows, it will become too large because of this yarn over. So the first time that I brioche knit, I do it like this with both yarns behind the needle, and I just brioche knit with the contrast color, so I don't have the yarn over, but I have this yarn behind like this. And then I just do it like I showed you in the first method, the brioche purl like this. So we have the brioche purl stitch and the yarn over, and then brioche knit just like I showed you. So after this one pass row, we'll have just like in the first method, we'll have all the stitches with yarn overs. So brioche purl, brioche knit, brioche purl, brioche knit, brioche purl, and brioche knit, and then leave the yarns one in front and one behind, and slip the last edge stitch. And then when we turn the work and we have to work again increases and decreases, there's something that you have to do to maintain the usual brioche. So we knit the edge stitch, and after that here we have this yarn over that we shouldn't have, because now we have to do a yarn over, and so we slip this previous yarn over. When we that's only for the purl stitch. The knit stitch, we just knit it. If you have to increase, we increase it, or whatever. If you have to decrease, it's a little bit tricky, because you have to get rid of this yarn over. So it's, I don't know if it's so convenient to use this method. So again, we have to slip one yarn over and slip this yarn over from the previous row. That should be here. So it's like we do one pass brioche, but still we have something to do after that. You see, I slip the yarn overs. I slip one yarn over with only the stitch, and then I slip the yarn over from the needle, so it's in the place it should be in the usual brioche. And I said that if you have to do brioche decrease, it will be tricky with these yarn overs that you have to slip from the needle. And then row 2, just the usual brioche, and when you turn you can do again one pass brioche, but when you come back in row number 1 you have to slip those yarn overs that you have on the purl stitch, because if you don't, you will have 2 yarn overs. So it's kind of one pass, but with a little bit of work after that. So this is the third method to do one pass brioche, and again this is half one pass brioche, because just like the previous, the second method, you do normally, you knit normally the first 2 rows. So knit the edge stitch, slip one yarn over, knit, slip on yarn over, knit. So this is the first row. After that you will have to brioche knit, slip on yarn over and brioche knit as a repeat, but well, now it's like this. And again, this is a good way to do one pass when you have to do increases and decreases, because you do them with each color in row number 1, and then in row number 2 you just slide the stitches, and in row number 2 brioche purl all those increased stitches if you have them and everything, which you have to do again with just one color. I don't know how you could do it with 2 colors. If someone knows, let me know too, but I can't imagine how you could do that. So for this row we have to brioche purl, slip on yarn over, and then repeat again and again. So slip on yarn over, brioche purl in the end, and slip the last edge stitch with the yarn in front of the work. After that, turn the work, and here we can do the one pass brioche. And as usual, as I said, the purl stitch, the purl color goes on the index finger, and the knit stitch goes on the middle finger, the knit color. So we knit the edge stitch, and then when I showed you the second method, I told you that here the first stitch, when you have to brioche knit, you should put the yarn like this, because if you do usual yarn over, if you do it like this, you'll just have this edge stitch would be too large. So I showed you to do it like this, just the first stitch, and then the brioche purl goes normally, and after that we did the knit stitch like this with the yarn over. And because of that, we need to when we turn the work in that first row, we have to slip this yarn over because we don't need it on the needle. So that's the difference of the third method. We don't make a yarn over, we just knit with both yarns behind the needle. So we already have this yarn over slipped. It's there where it should be. The only problem is that it was never a yarn over, so it's shorter than usually. When you do brioche, you do it like a yarn over, and then you slip it or knit it or some way, and so the yarn is longer, and you have a different effect. And now we do it like this, and I will show you the difference. So I'll put it back, and then brioche purl as usual. In all the 3 methods we do it the same way. So for this third method, you can put both of yarns behind and knit, but knit only, you just go under this contrast color and knit only the main color, that's the contrast color, and you have the stitch and the yarn behind this stitch. And then when you do the purl stitch, you do it like I showed you in both methods, and then knit, and then purl, and then knit, and purl. So when you purl, you have the yarn over, and when you knit, you don't have the yarn over, you just have the yarn behind. You knit with one yarn, and we have the second yarn behind this stitch. That's how you have to do it. And then when you slip the last stitch, you do it as I showed you, with one yarn in front and the second behind. And then you turn the work, and when you have to do that row with the increases and decreases, you just do it normally. You don't have any yarn overs that you have to slip. So you can see that here on the brioche purl stitches we don't have those yarn overs that we slipped in the second method. I will just show you on this sample where I did all three methods and the usual brioche. I hope you will see the difference. So this is the first one. We did those yarn overs on all of the stitches, so that's why this part of the sample, I want to make it like this. So you can see this is the marker, shows you where it ends, at which level, and you can see that it's almost not see-through. The upper part you can see the light through it, and this one not, because we have, like, I don't know, a double quantity of yarn overs, or I don't know how to explain it, but it's like this, and it's thicker and it's larger, the gauge is different. And here in the upper part we have the second method, and then I did the usual brioche. So I did one color in row 1, then 2, and then on the other part I did one color each time, so it's the same here and here, you see. So the second method is more like a normal brioche, but you have to slip those yarn overs that you have that you don't need. You have to slip them. And if you don't want to slip them and you use the third method, it's not such a big difference, or at least you don't see it here so much, but really you can see a little bit of difference. This blue yarn that I have, you see these lines in brioche here, in usual brioche and the second method there are lines here, and here are more like dots, because we didn't do the usual yarn over. We did it only behind the stitch, so it's shorter and it shows. And here still maybe not such a big difference, but still it's shorter. This blue yarn is shorter. Look, the normal brioche, it goes more like a V, and here if your tension is different, you can even get this second color yarn to be like this, horizontal almost. I hope you see the difference. If not, you can try all these three methods and you can see which one is best for your project.